ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I want to thank especially the community of Methana, represented by the mayor of Methana, and secondly to Mrs. Nomiko Evi from the University of Athens for the invitation to present, let's say, 30 years of work, more than 30 years of work on Methana. This means it's not my work alone. I am very pleased to present some of my friends and co-workers, particularly our connection with IGME, represented by Volker Gaitanakis, who started with me practically the work first on Egina and then on Methana. Of course, Panos works is a sedimentologist and a geologist, and the basics are the geology to start with. If you don't understand the geology, it's useless to work on volcanology, just for your information. And the other workers, my former students, Lorenz Hurni, Roland Oberhensley, even my colleague Lorenz Schwandler and Rasman Popper. As I said, I'm very honored that I can talk about my experience over more than 30 years. Some of my students now have been retired since 2 years as professors in Switzerland and in Germany. First of all, I wanted to tell you about the topography, the basics of every geology. And then volcanology is the understanding of the places. The places you cannot map in detail. You cannot do any understanding if you don't have a good record of the geology and the relativity. Now, maybe most of you does not know, I will show you shortly a new video which shows the up-to-date situation of Methana in terms of topography. It's very important, and I can tell you with a little bit of pleasure that Methana and the map of Methana in terms of modern technology is the most advanced technology and map in the world. I really insist on this. It's now totally, it was 20 years already, totally digitized and vectorized, and now it has been put in the full grid of WGS84 in the Greek system. So everyone who wants to do any further work can use this. The resolution of the topography is down to basically a few decimeters. So in fact, it is, you can put it on Google, you can put the whole geology on Google, whatever. You can take pieces away and things like this. Fully manipulated. Does not work? Play. You don't have a... Okay, we will later put another PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So, some basics about the topic what I want to talk about. The need of people living on a volcano. You heard yesterday a very nice presentation from Mr. Lekas about Santorini, the actually, let's say, present day situation of an active volcano. Now Methana, 2,200 years ago, erupted too, and in terms of geology, it erupted 1 second ago, which means Methana in this respect is also an active volcano. However, you don't realize it. So, when and where eruption may occur again, the kinds of volcanic phenomena that may occur, how long will an eruption occur, and whether populations near the volcano will be affected, secondary hazards, landslides and tsunami. This also applies, of course, to the area of the Saronic Gulf. Now, Forecast. If we're talking about forecast, a prognosis and prediction of a volcanic eruption. Most of you, or some of you, know that volcanoes are very dynamic systems controlled by many magmatic and tectonic processes. Magmatic and volcanic eruptive behavior is non-linear and stochastic. Volcanic hazard forecast has a non-precise statement of time and place. It's a complex problem and can only be approached through combined deterministic and probabilistic methods. All controlling parameters of magma emplacement, the important, and of the final eruptive phases which may occur, have a high percentage of uncertainty. These are general statements which apply to every volcano in the world, but they're different from every volcano of the world. You cannot apply it from one volcano to the other. Just in general, of course. One major goal, as I understand it, of the Methana Volcanological Congress, the first one now, is a long-term forecast about a possible eruption and about the range of eruptive scenarios and their magnitudes, which is based on the knowledge of a full historical record of eruptive scenarios, the material, the reconstruction of magmatic processes, and the evolution of the regional tectonic environment. And this is the basis to do any forecast. Then comes, in addition, the recent and present day geodynamic activity, which can be achieved by modern, first of all, seismic monitoring and the microseismicity, the modern seismic tomography, satellite imaging, geodetic measurements like GPS, movements, thermography, water and gas chemistry. So the content what I will talk about is the introduction I skipped because you may see a poster outside which takes care about this. It's a long-standing experience. I mean, Methana has been first already described more than 120 years ago. And then, fortunately, 3 PhD theses, now all 3 from the ETH Zurich. So basically, we can claim it's our island. It's a joke. Magmatic process. So, I will talk about the regional geology and tectonics shortly. Of course, I give a short overview about the volcanic history of Methana and, let's say, an artificial, distinction into several eruptive phases. Of course, I will show you the beauty of volcanic rocks in thin sections under the microscope, and then related to the magmatic processes, the interpretation in deep-seated magma reservoirs, differentiation of magma, fractional crystallization, assimilation, magma mixing and mingling. These are items which I think some of you have heard already in the university. The magma emplacement, the depth of the magma chamber from petrologic data. It's at the moment the only way to, let's say, show in a more detailed way, where is the magma coming from? And of course, I refer to the recent and present day geodynamic activity and come to the conclusion, finally, will Methana volcano erupt soon? Now, the regional geology and tectonics beauty of Methana, as you see here in a nice photography from Tobias Schorr. A very nice topography. That was the reason we got so much excited also with the morphology to make a modern way of cartography. Actually, the whole area has to be taken into consideration as a volcanic field, not only each volcanic island or peninsula. Commemoria, Egina, Methana, and Poros. And of course, the last eruption, as you can see, the big lava flow from Kamenyu volcano. The regional geology, which of course I told you, has been, let's say, taken from the existing geological maps, basically done by IGME, with one of the major workers, Panos Gaitanakis here, and in the area where we have the surrounding Gulf with some major fault system, one goes west and one more or less east-west. So, just to show you, our knowledge already existed with the beginning of plate tectonics more than 40 years ago. These are old pictures, I choose them extra, that you show you it's not something which we know since yesterday, it's 40 years old. From geophysics, the seismics, and the location of the earthquake epicenters, 1978 and 85. The subduction zone dipping underneath the Peloponnesus is more or less, let's say, east-west or southwest northeast. And the position of the volcanoes, Methana and Egina. I don't want to go into the deep processes because they are not related immediately to a volcanic eruption. This is academic knowledge, scientific knowledge. Doesn't have to do anything with the eruption possibly in the next future. These are long-term processes in millions of years. The upper part, you see an old profile through the horse-graben structures, the morphotectonic profile, with the uplifts and the falls, the steep dipping falls through the surrounding Gulf in the southwest-northeast profile, which is important to know because these are things which relate to the present day situation to understand. And of course, one of the first, let's say, maps about the seafloor structures related to the volcanoes. And also where the red arrow is, as I heard yesterday from Emmy, that there was a finding of a let's say, subsea volcano, let's say, phenomenon, let's say. If it was a real volcano or just a fissure eruption, we don't know yet in detail. The profiles, they're very important seismic profiles because it's highly exaggerated in the vertical scale, but you see the sedimentary layers there. This finally, sometimes in the future, will tell us more let's say, the age sequences and the dynamics of the whole area. At the moment, we do not know this in detail. And the volcano there, the submarine volcano in the west of quickly, just over the whole volcanic, let's say, exactly Milos belt, the island, so-called island arc, which is an artificial, let's say, the old parts in the west and the east, the oldest in, of course, of the volcanic field here was Egina and Cromionia. On the east, the volcanic field between Kos, Yali, Nisiros, starting also in the Pliocene time and going up to maybe, it's a question mark, because of course there we don't have exact data of these ages. They are random ages. The only thing which we do know, two data, is the one approximately, let's say, plus minus 30 years from Methana, and of course the Santorini eruption up to 1950. Now, when you see data, age data, in terms of millions of years in the literature, the ages here between, let's say, like in Cromionia, 4 million to 3.6, and then 2.8 to 3.3 million years. These are ages with big error, with an error of 10,000 of years. All these data have been taken from, in the past, from whole rock analysis and things like this, which we know today, that they are, at the time they were taken also, they knew with a big error. But it gives you indications about the ages when it was active, let's say, in the Pliocene time. So, the old one were here in Egina, Comionia, and Poros. The ages from Methana, we know about 900,000 years older, the base maybe. We have not yet exact data on this. And then some modern times between, let's say, in the last couple of 100,000 of years. This is the situation in terms of ages. Now going quickly through the present day situation, you know how the relicts which are there in Comionia are pieces everywhere from volcanic rocks in a hydrothermal area where we know, where we can at least take some waters and gases from to analyze, to give some indications. This is the situation today. Fortunately, we have all the modern construction that we get some better information about this today through the tunnels and through the highway cuts. Egina is a very complex system, which we did the first map in the conventional way of mapping, of course, with many lava flows and similar and necks and domes similar to Methana, but in an older way, morphological. So this was our first concern about the magmatic evolution. We had to map the islands carefully and on the basis of a good existing topography. Generally speaking, for Egina, were two big phases with individualization during Pliocene, the Pleopliocene boundary, an older, let's say, base consisting of these typical volcanic rocks, like we call dacite, and a more modern way of extrusion of the Oros, the highest mountain here in Egina, with andesitic material, a more, let's say, the original volcanic material, the andesites and basaltic andesites. And Poros, the last location of the volcanic field, of the surrounding volcanic field. Maybe most of you know this big lava flow and dome, which exists only one piece above the beautiful city of Poros. Now coming to Methana. To Methana, with this map here in different colors, which we, let's say, colored according to the rock, let's say, to the rock type and to the chemistry of the rock. And secondly, of course, we labeled it and divided it into phases according to the morphology. And the morphology and topography, which is very important, who cuts whom, which is younger and which is older. You can only do this if you do a very careful mapping. So the relative ages play a very important role. And it plays a more important role than a radiometric age determination. So basically, it's an old, we call it an old volcanic socket there. The Methana volcanic material, volcanic structures, domes, flows, erupting along fissures and intersectional faults, and then volcanic rocks together. The old volcanic base here, labeled with numbers 1A and 1B. Of course, has not yet been discriminated on this map, but what I've seen today and in the last recent years, it got very nice road cuts, everything there through the mountains and along the coast. So any kind of young geologist can map more in detail in the future the volcanic base, maybe to get a better indication what happened in the early phases of volcanic eruption. So in the basis we had a first phase which we call indifferentiated because we could not differentiate the volcanics there. We could just see there were dacites, there were andesites, and there were also some pyroclastic rocks in there. and some acidic rocks, which mean pumices. I will show you later. The most typical rock on Methana is called a dacite, the name of the volcanic rock, which is a rock composed here in terms of, this is about 10 centimeters, 15 centimeters, there's no scale on there, of these white pieces. This is plagioclase, which you see also white and black here under the microscope, and the black pieces of minerals, which we call hornblende or amphiboles. I don't want to go into details of these things, just to give you an impression how these rocks look. There was a little unit there also in the beginning, however the morphology is not very well exposed, but it can be mapped in very detail. This is a small volcanic, let's say, item of Manisa. It's a west side of, southwest side of Methana. You see here consisting of also the same rock site, dacites, andesites, some more mafic rocks, also some acidic rocks, which we call rhyodacite. So this is a kind of a volcano which has been developed most probably at decent depths in the magma chamber in a small piece to erupt in the early phases of the volcanic history. Some items which are very important under the microscope, of course. You see this megascope, you cannot see them. You see the scale here, about 1 millimeter. It's a crystal which we call olivine. It's iron magnesium silicate, which shows us when we get the chemical composition today with a very specific way. We call it with an electron microprobe, where we can measure even pieces of several microns, the chemistry. We can deduct from this, like with a criminalistic way, the origin of the crystal at greater depths in the magma reservoir. Or these rocks here, with the two, let's say, major phenocrysts, an amphibole or hornblende, and then a plagioclase, which you see a lot of oscillations, which means growing rims to form this crystal. Modern technology nowadays, not even 20 years ago, allows it to measure each of this, let's say, rim inside and deduct from it the dynamics of the growing of the crystal. Sometimes in the future, maybe it tells us, this crystal tells us how the magma dynamics went on. This is future work. Then the phase 2, younger, with the question mark, maybe the beginning 900,000 years, around 900,000 years ago, but for a time which we cannot discriminate, but for a time of a spread of 400,000 years, it's a very long time in the Pleistocene time. But you see the morphology of these items here, these mountains, is not very well expressed. However, we can see some volcanic structures, flow structures, we can see some fissures, etc. In this phase, of course, on the map, it has been discriminated according to the morphology, each item. I don't want to go through all these names, but I want to show you how these things have been done. Now, a very important aspect in terms of forecast is also, we have some occurrences of pumices here. When I say witness of catastrophic eruption, the pumice tells us, and the way the eruption, the way the rocks are deposited, how, let's say, how violent this eruption was. We have seen these eruption types, let's say, in recent years, let's say in Pinatubo, 1990. This kind of eruption is catastrophic. And if such eruption would occur, then it would affect Athens no matter what, in a dramatic way. But it never occurred again in the younger systems. In the younger systems, let's say in the last 500,000 years. So, these first three, which is from the morphology detectable in many items, has been, let's say, put into big lava flows, which go to the northern part, and which go to the southern part of Methana, which are exposed nicely, which is morphology. In addition, more younger, the east-west systems of these items, isolated eruption, each one, but maybe in a time phase within a time of a few thousand years, a few 10,000 of years. We don't know yet. As an example, the highest, let's say, elevation, Kiloma Bogore, fissure eruption or dome here. It's an andesite rock with these pleasure places, to find out in the future what happens in the dynamics of the system. Or here the large lava flow from Kelowna going down to Megalochori up to here. This is a morphology nicely which can be studied, and it is certainly much younger than the adjacent parts, the older ones. Of course, in a Google picture, maybe you see it, some of you may see it plastic in a positive way, some of you, it depends how my eyes are, I see it in a negative way. I see the domes coming up, or see the domes going down as a whole. But anyway, this is the map which has been done, the topography and the mapping, if you want, more than 20 years ago, and this is a Google picture today, which you can see on the internet. So I just show this to show you the precision of geological and geographic mapping. I'm sorry. Then the east-west fissure volcanoes here, the domes, nicely. Could be that we have tomorrow driving up to see the morphology, the domes, which were already mapped in 1900 and the early 40s, no, the late 30s, by von Leyden. This map, when you look outside, he did the topography all by his own, by his hand, having just the normal grid, and I think on the British Admiralty charts. But he did the whole morphology by his own. It shows very nicely this place. The rock of these east-west fissure volcanoes, a very complex, let's say, rock made out with a lot of glass in the matrix, we call it matrix, and in between the crystals which can be seen, one, the real phenocryst, like the amphiboles or the plagioclase, and something which bothers us a lot. These are quartz crystals which have been produced earlier in maybe a magma which we do not see, or it has been taken up by some crustal rocks of the neighborhood. The same for the biotite here. The last phase, of course, the most impressive one, morphologically, is the phase of Mavre Petra volcanic complex, or Kamenevuno. The big lava flow, which has two eruptive phases, a beginning here, this place of Ayers Andreas, basaltic andesite, rocks which came out and then overflown partly by these dacitic rocks of Kamun. In a picture, which of course some of you know, the big, let's say, dome in here, and from the dome flows going slightly to the west, but the others into the sea to the north. And a spine, a leftover basically, a flow happening during the last phase of eruption where magma from underneath pressed something already crystallized or cooled rocks up into the sky. It's just a local phenomenon, nothing special. The rocks here, Kameni lavas, very complex in the history. And the only way to study them carefully, to get something out of the dynamics, I told you before, is to go crystal by crystal to analyze them in the scale of micron under the electron, let's say, microsonde, which we call also today by laser ablation, which we can erase areas of some microns and then analyze them in a mass spectrometer. I mean, these techniques are highly sophisticated, but it's the only way to get further knowledge about things which happened in the past. Ayers Andreas, the little lava flows which come out here from the center, also with some eruptive, let's say, gases and not pumices, but pyroclastic rocks, which are spread here around the area. These basaltic andesites, again with crystals like olivine, very primitive in the chemistry, which tells us again it comes from greater depths. I don't want to bother you with the chemistry, but at this time 30 years ago, when we established in Zurich the full analytical procedures with trace elements and major elements, we analyzed 145 samples from all over the islands, but we never published this data. We used that data to get correct names on the map. So that's why we have a huge load of data from the past, which can be interpreted. But one way, which is very important to show, is this kind of diagram. I cannot explain it in detail, but what it should show is that these are some selected samples, which shows us the similarity of the chemistry with maybe called major and trace elements, which means throughout the ages of the eruptions, the chemistry, the type of magmas were very similar. The origin of the magmas are very similar. So it's nothing from the old part which is completely different than from the young part. Or here with the trace elements. This large scatter here is not due to analytical errors. It's due to the rocks itself.